Online dating where you can meet anyone with a simple swipe. Some find love, while others stumble into nightmares they'll never forget. Tonight, we dive into one woman's harrowing experience with online dating that left her questioning everything. A true story that will make you think twice before your next match. Story number 1. It all started innocently enough for Zoe. She was just getting over a long-term relationship and decided to give online dating a try, with millions of people looking for love. It seemed like the perfect way to meet someone new. She quickly matched with Eric, a handsome guy in his late 20s. His profile seemed normal, and they started chatting. He was charming, witty, and seemed to check all the boxes, but sometimes, what lies beneath the surface is much darker than we realize. After a few days of talking, Eric asked Zoe out on a date. She was nervous but excited. They planned to meet at a local coffee shop, a safe and public place. But as the day of the date approached, something strange happened. The night before the date, Eric messaged Zoe, asking if she could pick him up instead of meeting at the coffee shop. He said his car had broken down and it would be easier if she just swung by his place. Zoe hesitated, but against her better judgment, she agreed. It was just a quick detour. After all, as Zoe drove to his house, things felt off. The address Eric gave her wasn't in the busy downtown area like he had mentioned. Instead, it led her to a quiet, almost desolate part of town. She shrugged it off. Maybe it was just a glitch on the map. The house was nothing like the one in Eric's pictures. It was run down, with no lights on. She texted Eric to confirm the address, and he responded quickly, telling her to come inside because he was still getting ready. Zoe's instinct screamed for her to leave, but curiosity got the better of her. She got out of the car and made her way to the door. As she knocked, the door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black hallway. But what happened next would haunt her forever. The house was eerily quiet, no sign of Eric, just the faint sound of footsteps. Behind her, she whipped around, but no one was there. She called out his name, no answer. Her heart raced as she moved deeper into the house. Then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Eric. "I'm running late. I'll be there soon." Zoe froze. If Eric wasn't here, then who had just opened the door? Before she could react, a loud noise came from the upstairs, followed by hurried footsteps racing down. Zoe didn't wait to find out who or what was coming. She bolted out of the house, not daring to look back. Zoe sped away and immediately blocked Eric's number. She later found out that the house had been abandoned for years, but that's not the scariest part. When she looked back at their messages, something chilling stood out. Zoe never found out who or what was waiting for her in that house. Was it a sick prank, or something far more sinister? To this day, she can't shake the feeling that she narrowly escaped something horrific. Story number 2. Sophie, a 29-year-old teacher, was ready to find someone special. After months of being single, she decided to give online dating a try. That's when she stumbled across David's profile. He was charming, attractive, and shared her love for books and travel. They began talking every day. He seemed perfect, almost too perfect. He told Sophie he had just moved to her city for work and was looking to make new friends. After a few weeks of chatting, he suggested they finally meet in person. Sophie, excited and nervous, agreed. They arranged to meet at a popular restaurant downtown. What she didn't realize was that this would be the beginning of the most terrifying experience of her life. On the night of the date, Sophie arrived early and waited for David at their agreed-upon table. But as time passed, something felt off. He was 15 minutes late, then 30. Sophie texted him, but there was no response. Finally, an hour passed, and Sophie decided to leave. But as she stood up, she noticed a man sitting in the corner, watching her. She hadn't seen him before, but there was something unsettling about the way he was staring. As she left the restaurant, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from David. "I saw you." Chills ran down Sophie's spine. Sophie was confused and creeped out. Had David been there the whole time, watching her, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and replied, asking why he hadn't come over to say hello. His response made her blood run cold. David claimed he had seen her and left because he thought she looked different from her photos. Confused, Sophie checked her profile again. Everything seemed normal, nothing was edited or old. Something wasn't adding up. Sophie felt embarrassed, but things were about to take a turn for the worse. She decided to delete the app and move on with her life. But David wasn't ready to let her go just yet. A few days later, Sophie noticed a strange pattern. She'd see the same car parked outside her apartment building. At first, she brushed it off, but then she started noticing it wherever she went, at the grocery store, outside her workplace, even parked near her gym. One night, she got home to find a note slipped under her door. It was simple but chilling. "You can't hide from me." Terrified, Sophie immediately contacted the police. But without any direct threats or proof of who was following her, there was little they could do. It wasn't until a few days later that Sophie's nightmare would truly escalate. Late one evening, Sophie was getting ready for bed when she heard a noise coming from her living room. Her heart stopped. She knew she had locked the door and all the windows. Slowly, she crept down the hallway. The only sound was her own breathing. That's when she saw the window, slightly cracked open, with a muddy footprint on the floor beneath it. Someone had been inside her apartment. She immediately called the police, and they arrived within minutes, but the intruder was already gone. All they found were a few muddy footprints leading back out the window and a single message scrawled on a piece of paper left on her kitchen counter. It read, "I told you, you can't hide." The police began investigating, and that's when they made a horrifying discovery. David, the man Sophie had been talking to for weeks, wasn't who he claimed to be. In fact, the real David was someone entirely different, living in another state. The man Sophie had been corresponding with had stolen his identity. Even worse, the man following Sophie was someone with a history of stalking and harassment. He had been using fake profiles to lure women in, watching them from a distance, and in Sophie's case, getting dangerously close. Sophie immediately moved out of her apartment and changed her phone number, disappearing from her stalker's reach. While she was never harmed physically, the psychological trauma of the experience left her shaken. Online dating can be an exciting way to meet new people, but it's also a place where predators hide behind fake profiles. Sophie's story serves as a terrifying reminder that you never really know who's on the other side of the screen. So, if something feels off, trust your instincts. You never know what might be lurking behind that perfect profile picture. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more chilling true tales. Stay safe, and always be cautious online. Story number 3. Rachel was a 26-year-old college student looking for someone special. After spending most of her time studying and working, she decided to give online dating a shot. She didn't expect much, just a fun date or two, but that's when she met Ben. Ben was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. They spent hours texting, sharing stories, and planning their future date. Ben's profile was clean. No red flags, just an ordinary guy looking for a connection. At least, that's what Rachel thought. But sometimes, it's the people who seem the most ordinary who are hiding the darkest secrets. After a couple of weeks of talking, Rachel agreed to meet Ben in person. They chose a popular coffee shop downtown, safe, public, and familiar to Rachel. When she arrived, Ben was already there, sitting at a table by the window, just as handsome as his photos. The date went well. Ben was attentive, funny, and they had a great time chatting. Rachel felt like she had met someone she could really connect with. After the date, Ben walked her to her car, and they said their goodbyes. But as Rachel drove home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next few days, Ben's behavior started to change. He began texting Rachel constantly, asking where she was, who she was with, and why she wasn't responding right away. At first, Rachel thought he was just being sweet, maybe a bit over-enthusiastic. But the text quickly became overbearing, and then disturbing. Ben began sending cryptic messages like, "I know where you were today," or "I'm always watching." Rachel brushed it off as a joke, but the more she ignored him, the more obsessive Ben became. That's when Rachel decided it was time to end things. She blocked his number, stopped using the dating app, and tried to move on. But Ben wasn't ready to let her go. Soon after Rachel cut off contact with Ben, strange things started happening. She noticed someone following her home from work. Her phone would buzz with unknown numbers calling and hanging up, and then they were the sightings. Rachel's friends told her they saw a man who looked like Ben lingering around her apartment complex and even showing up near her classes. It felt like no matter where Rachel went, Ben was there, watching from the shadows. Rachel reported the incidents to the police, but without any direct threats or solid proof, there was little they could do. But things were about to take a darker turn. One night, after a long day of classes and work, Rachel returned to her apartment. She locked the door behind her and got ready for bed. But in the middle of the night, she woke up to a faint creaking sound, like someone walking in her apartment. Her heart raced as she lay still, listening. She knew she had locked the door. Slowly, she reached for her phone to call for help, but before she could, her bedroom door creaked open. And there, standing in the doorway, was Ben. The next morning, Rachel's friends became concerned when she didn't show up for work or answer her phone. They called the police, and when officers arrived at her apartment, they found it empty. Rachel was gone. The police began an investigation, and it didn't take long for them to connect the dots. They discovered that Ben's entire identity was a lie. His photos, his name, even his job, everything was fabricated. He was a predator who had been using fake profiles for years, luring women in and stalking them. But Rachel was different. She hadn't just been another target. She had disappeared, and to this day, her whereabouts remain unknown. Despite a thorough investigation, no one has ever seen or heard from Rachel again. The man calling himself Ben vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a trail of fear and devastation. Online dating can be a great way to meet new people, but it's also a place where predators can hide in plain sight. Rachel's story is a haunting reminder that not everyone is who they say they are, and sometimes, trusting the wrong person can have terrifying consequences. If you ever feel like something is off, trust your gut. It could be the difference between a safe escape and a nightmare you'll never wake up from. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more terrifying true stories. And remember, stay safe online because you never know who's behind that perfect profile.